Welcome to Discovering. It's December, and in the UP, that means muzzleloader and late archery season for whitetails. The temperature's hanging between 0 and 10. It's a perfect time to go camping. So we packed up the gear, got out of town, and set up camp for the weekend. Then cut it, pile it, put it in the woodshed. I talked with MSU Extension Forester Bill Cook to learn more. Sit back, put your feet up. It's Monday night and time for discovering.
Secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
December in the Upper Peninsula. A cold day would be well below 0. A warm day would be 20 degrees. A nice day would be any day you can get out into the woods. Thoughts of bucks and rut have faded along with the colors of fall. But that doesn't mean the hunt is over. Here in the UP, December means muzzleloader and late archery season for whitetails. Add in the late small game season, and you've got plenty of reasons to get into the woods. And that's just what we did. We packed up the gear, got out of town, and set up camp for the weekend. Home sweet home. We were set up and settled in, and the rest of the crew showed up just in time for the evening hunt. The crew consisted of my son Jordan, who'd be hunting with a muzzle loader. My good friend Petey, also hunting with a muzzle loader. Another good friend, Petey's brother Russ, who planned on hunting grouse and rabbit. And he volunteered to be the camp cook. And me, I was here to shoot video and spend some time in a tree stand with my bow. With hopes of some day one action, I tagged along with Jordan for the evening hunt. Certainly many obvious differences between hunting with a muzzleloader and hunting with a typical centerfire rifle. Some say it's like a slow-moving freight train compared to a speedy sports car. If for some reason you ever found yourself in a position where you needed a second shot quickly, ain't happening. And taking a crack at a deer over 100 yards could prove to be hit and miss. And there's also the cleaning process that takes place after you shoot. I also discovered some similarities between hunting with a muzzleloader versus my trusty old 30-30. You hunt in much the same fashion as you would in rifle season. Hunker down in a blind and sit patiently. For this year, I did notice one similarity in particular. Hunting on this night would prove to be pretty much exactly what many hunters experienced this past rifle season. Lots of waiting, nothing to aim at. Our only reward would be a quick glimpse of an uninterested doe passing through. I'll be the first to admit I have very little patience when it comes to sitting in a blind and waiting for a deer. I can't remember the last time I hunted in a blind for more than 15 minutes without kicking the door open and hitting the trail. Put a camera in my hand and it's a different story, but when it comes to hunting, I'm walking. That being said, I wasn't that disappointed when darkness rolled in. The thought of getting back to camp to connect up with the delicious UP pasty that I knew was simmering away on the top of the wood stove was overwhelming. It's amazing how food can taste so much better relative to your surroundings. We finished off the day with a few snorts of whiskey, a bunch of stories, some new, some old, and the distant howls of a pack of coyotes backed up by the mesmerizing sounds of a crackling fire. Before long, the morning wake-up call from the camp cook. Anybody getting up? Today I'd tag along with Petey. We conveniently set up camp not far from the blind Petey hunts in during the rifle season. That gave me high hopes that this was the morning. It was exactly the same as the pop-up blind, except it was raised up in the air, built out of wood, had windows, and it was insulated. We no sooner got into the blind, and the deer, along with one grouse, began to arrive. As in any deer hunting scenario, I began to picture where the big guy was going to come from. Probably straight out of that marsh in front of us. I could see it now, First just a glimpse of a deer, then a flash of a rack. I could already feel my heart beating and hear the story back at camp. Then again, maybe he'll come trotting through the hardwoods. A quick bite to eat before searching out a spot to bed down for the day. Yep, just a matter of time in this spot. Well, the morning drifted by and he never showed. Matter of fact, with the exception of the 4 does that came and left several times, it was pretty much just like the last spot, and exactly like rifle season. Nothing to aim at. But that was okay. My pasty wore off some time ago. And breakfast was calling. Back at camp, Russell was busy with breakfast. I'm not sure there's anything that smells better than breakfast when you're in the outdoors. The smell of coffee, cinnamon rolls, and Canadian bacon, with just a hint of wood smoke. As part of this adventure, I won't soon forget. The nice part about living in the middle of nowhere, even for a weekend, is that it forces you to relax. There you are, nowhere to go. You can't run to the post office or finish cleaning the garage. No putting up Christmas lights or running to the store. No porch to sweep off, no sidewalk to shovel, and there's not a chance I'll have to fix that wheel that keeps falling off the garage door. Just sit there and do nothing but relax. Dinner was in the pot. Venison roast and porchetta roast. Russell grabbed a shotgun and headed off in search of some late season grouse. Petey headed out for a bit of afternoon rabbit hunting. Jordy headed out with the muzzleloader, and I grabbed my bow and headed for the tree stand. To be honest, I've never hunted the late season with a bow before. I tend to relate bow hunting to a lighter jacket and the colors of fall leaves, so 8 degrees and white would be something new for me. I can tell you, if you're a bow hunter and you haven't been out in December, give it a whirl. Even if you find out you don't care for archery in the cold, hanging on the side of a tree in the UP woods, waiting for a deer to show up, is never a bad way to spend an afternoon. And even if they don't show up, you still get the satisfaction of the anticipation. I did get to watch a doe and a spike scooting around my stand for a while. Nothing to shoot at, but enough to add a little bit of excitement into the afternoon. I finished off the night staring at a winter sunset and an empty runway. Time to head back to camp. As the day comes to an end, the evening begins. We were far enough from civilization to forget about the usual daily chores, but close enough that Patty and a friend joined us for dinner. Sitting around a tent in the middle of nowhere listening to El Marejo on the radio is not a bad way to spend a Saturday night in the UP.
El Marejo, and you're listening to American Country Gold on 103 FXD.
It was sure fine with all of us. Matter of fact, pretty much everyone we talked to thought we were nuts for camping in a tent in the middle of December.
Hazardous weather. Moderate to heavy lake effect snow will continue to impact the Garden Peninsula through the evening.
But I think half of them wished they were coming along, and all of them would have had a hard time leaving if they'd stopped in. All in all, it was a great weekend. We hunted with a muzzleloader, we hunted with a bow, we hunted grouse and rabbit. Unfortunately, no animals were harmed in the making of this episode, but that was okay. Don't get me wrong, it's always great to connect with a nice buck. But just how imperative that is debatable. I think just knowing he's out there is what keeps us doing what we do, matching wits with the master of the forest. We use everything we've learned in an attempt to outsmart him in his own backyard, and most of the time, he's gonna win. We take what we've learned and come back the next day, or the next year, and try again. And then one day, everything falls into place, and we cross paths. He slips up, and we're in the right place at the right time. Then it's our turn. I guess that's why we keep coming back year after year, for that chance. A chance that we're in the right place at the right time. I think we keep hunting because of the ones we didn't get, more so than the ones we hung on the wall. And as long as we know he's out there, we'll keep coming back. We spend countless hours hunting, but only a few seconds taking a shot. As long as we can make it about the hunting, we can never be disappointed. As Yoopers, we specialize in making do with what we've got, and we've got firewood. You'd be hard-pressed to find a backyard that isn't adorned with a tarp-covered pile of wood. Whether we realize it or not, it's just one of the ways we live off the land here in the Upper Peninsula. Here's some insight on heating with wood from MSU Extension Agent Bill Cook.
You can talk about which wood to burn, and you can talk about how to stack it and season it, and you can talk about different wood stoves and furnaces and chimneys, and all that's important if you're going to be a steady wood burner. And incidentally, firewood is the cheapest way to go, hands down. But there's a caveat to that, and that's, of course, you got to be willing to do some work. Average home burns about 100 million BTUs in a season. Cord of wood will have roughly 15 to 20 million BTUs, so depending on your house and your furnace and your efficiencies, you're going to need about 5-6 cords of wood to heat a good-sized house. Anything that comes out of our northern hardwoods, pretty much you burn, and I'm one of those guys where I pretty much burn anything that I find. We've got even some old pieces of willow sitting here that if you dry it, it's a nice fast burning wood for those spring fires or kindling to get things going. But most of the time it's this hard maple, sugar maple. It's a real common pulpwood. A lot of times you can find loggers who can't necessarily sell it to a mill for one reason or another. The smaller size material makes great firewood. So the species doesn't really matter a whole lot, although you'll find a lot of people argue that point, because wood, pound for pound, has the same amount of BTUs, give or take a small percentage. The difference between different kinds of woods, for example, is the volume. Pound for pound, willow and maple have the same number of BTUs, but maple is a lot denser than willow. So you need more willow by volume to get the same pound or the same ton or the same amount of weight as you would with hard maple. So that's why a lot of people will say you get more bang for your buck with a dense hardwood, a sugar maple or an oak or something along those lines, than you will with willow. But that doesn't mean you can't burn, and that's basically true. There are more BTUs in this piece of wood than there are in this piece of wood, even though they're about the same size. But that's simply because this is denser. But you can burn in a wood stove or a furnace just about anything, as long as you dry it and season it correctly. The moisture content is going to significantly reduce the amount of BTUs that go into your house, because a wet piece of wood is going to burn slower. The heat in the furnace is going to have to drive off that moisture, that water, before it begins to burn the wood. So you're taking a lot of heat and essentially evaporating water instead of using it to heat your house. So dry wood, as dry as you can get it, is good. If you can get wood down to 20% moisture, that's basically air-dried wood, 20%, a little less than 20%. If you've got that, you can burn almost anything. Now, there are some woods that you can burn wet because of the wood structure. They carry less water. Ash is notorious for that, at least white ash. You can burn it a little moister than some species. Sugar maple, on the other hand, doesn't burn very well when it's wet, and neither does oak and aspen and willow, and some of those don't burn at all. Some folks will say you can't burn or shouldn't burn conifers like jack pine or balsam fir or tamarack. Well, you can. They do have some extra chemicals in them, and it's even more important to get those well dried and seasoned because a lot of those chemicals will be driven off during the drying process. They are going to put more chemicals into your chimney flue shaft, and that'll have to be cleaned out. If you burn that stuff wet, you're going to get more and more of those accumulations, and that's when you get the possibility of chimney fires. Some people call it creosote, which isn't quite right, but the creosote that's in there catches fire, and then disaster strikes. There are a lot of people who do cut wood just before they burn it, and you can't do that. Dead wood, if you cut it, the upper part of the wood is actually drier than the bottom part, but the first 8 to 10 feet of that wood still can conduct water during the growing season, especially the last couple of feet. The butt end of that log or that standing dead tree is still wet. And I would still recommend air drying those to get the most efficiency out of the wood in your furnace or the stove that you're using. You want to keep the house warm and you want to burn the least amount of wood as possible and minimize the labor that's involved. Let that nice July, August air dry that wood out for you, and that's going to be the trick right there. And I don't stack my wood like this when it's drying in the season. This is my winter stacking. It's pretty tight. I try to fit in as much into the garage as possible. But when I air dry it, I'll stack it real loosely, 2 or 3 at a time, crosswise, to allow lots of air movement in there to dry that wood out. You can see there's lots of air movement through here. It'll move through the pile. The breezes will move through, and then when the sun beats, I pull off the tarps in the summer. And I don't mind it raining on it during the summer because that's just wood water that's on top of the wood, and it'll actually dry out pretty quickly. As long as that air can move through it, it'll be dry. Of course, most of the time, end of July and August, we don't get much rain anyway. And you get those nice temperatures, 75, 80, 85 degrees. It'll drive most of the moisture out that air is going to drive out. But then come Labor Day or soon after that, I'll cover it all up and keep the fall rains off, and then we're all set to go.
Well, that's it for this week. Be sure to check out 906outdoors.com, where you'll find the 906 fishing report, TV6 weather, shopping, and more. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week right here on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.